Ask you to silence your phones, please, so we don't have interruptions during the meeting. Appreciate that. I remember telling one group of people, please do that, and I was in the middle of the meeting, did my phone go off? And they say experience is the best teacher. Oh, so we are. Good evening, everyone. I would like to open the meeting of the Bristol Township Planning Commission. I'd like to welcome everyone in attendance and our viewing audience. If you would mind standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to ask you to kindly remain standing. To keep in mind our troops that are in harm's way, our prisoners of war, our killed in action, our missing in action, all those families have been affected by the viruses, children who have been separated from their parents, and any personal intentions you may have. Thank you very much. So this evening, our agenda, first we have consideration for the December 15th Planning Commission meeting minutes. Commissioners, you have copies of those minutes. You've had an opportunity to review those minutes, and I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion to approve, and it's been seconded. Any comments or questions? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you, Commission. Now we'll let you know that we are in receipt of two requests for continuance. First one is it was sent, good afternoon, please allow this email to represent the applicant, Lavender Builders LLC. Request for continuance of the above referenced matter from tomorrow's Planning Commission agenda to the February agenda in order to have additional time to address access issues related to the proposed development. It is the applicant's belief that a 1-month continuance would be more than sufficient to do the job, to do so. Commission, I would entertain a motion to continue this applicant's request.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved and second. Any comments or questions? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you, Commissioners. I'm also in receipt of a letter to Bob's As you know, our office represents the above-referenced applicant in connection with their application for land development on the above-referenced property, which application is currently listed on the Planning Commission agenda for Wednesday, January 19th, 2022. We are currently in the process of revising the plans and therefore are requesting a continuance of the Planning Commission's meeting to complete same and afford the township the opportunity to review the revised plans once provided. Accordingly, we would respectfully request that this matter be continued from the Planning Commission's agenda of January 19th, 2022, and rescheduled for a Planning Commission meeting once the reviews are completed. This correspondence will also confirm that on behalf of the applicant, we are authorizing an extension under the applicable municipalities' planning code provisions through the end of March 2020. I will need a motion to approve this continuance.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved in second. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Now I will entertain a motion to amend the agenda. Our agenda seated now is, the next item would be consideration of a proposed ordinance. This commission would prefer to have this discussion after we do the review of the applicant for the Ideal Trans LLC. So I'll entertain a motion to amend the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
It's been moved
Second it.
and second. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much, Commissioners. And before I go any further, my apologies, I'd like to introduce George Dacca as a new member of our Planning Commission. George, welcome aboard. Yeah. Okay, so we now have the land development for Ideal Trans LLC, 1498 Clyde Wake Drive, Bristol, requesting preliminary and final land development approval in order to construct a trucking terminal on a property located on Clyde Wake Drive, lots 5 and 6. Tax parcels number 5-61-421-005 and 006 in an M-1 light manufacturing zone district of Bristol Township. And we have a representative from Ideal Trans.
I do. Good evening. I'm Ed Murphy. I represent the applicant. With me tonight, seated to my right on the front row, is Mike Lardy from Landcorp. He's the project engineer. This project should not be new to Planning Commission. We presented it mid-year last as part of the sketch plan when our client was under agreement to purchase. It is now. So we presented the sketch 9 months ago or so when we were first under agreement to purchase the property. As you said, Mr. Chairman, it's a little less than 4 acres. It's the last parcel undeveloped on Clyde Wake Drive, and it is a proposed trucking terminal. We did, after the sketch plan, went to the zoning hearing board early last fall and got certain items of zoning relief. And then after that, we've engineered the land development plan, submitted it in November, and we're back tonight to review with the Planning Commission the review comments that Kurt's office made that are reflected in his January 11th review letter. Mike has had a chance to talk to Kurt and Samantha about those comments. We have no issue with those comments. So hopefully Kurt would confirm that tonight. And what's candidly left to talk about would be just to review the waivers. There's a handful of waivers associated with the application now in its current form that we're happy, or Kurt can comment, whatever is quicker to do, we're happy to do it. But I think we're large measure on board with Kurt and Samantha's comments, and think we're ready to move ahead for a recommendation if you agree, so.
Okay, Ed, well, if you would mind just going over the waiver request, please identify the numbers for the records.
Item 1 is from section 173-16B. This deals with the amount of freeboard available for basin number 3. Kurt, maybe it's probably easier.
I'm sorry, I think we're looking at different,
We had an updated waiver letter, but
Sent to Robert yesterday.
Oh, it's the land court one.
yeah, it's this one, Land Corps,
yep, dated January 18th.
right?
John, you have that?
No, this one's November 12th. Hold on a second.
I think you should
There
have
we
it.
go. We had two, January 11th, 2022. Yes, we do have that one.
January 18th?
I have January 18th.
Well, this is the one that Bob gave us in the back.
Yeah, so we have the Land Corps.
Actual letter?
I'm looking at the
Got another copy?
Gilmore.
Yeah, I
So-
was looking at
so-
Gilmore.
So to cut through the confusion here, we're looking at the Land Corps, but actually, this is under the Gilmore letterhead. This was sent to Gilmore with, so now we're willing to be on the same page.
Okay,
No, 'cause under Gilmore, this is 170.
Well, I'm going to wait for him to give that number again, and then we're going to discuss that.
I'll highlight them and then let Kurt talk about the ones that are technical that he probably would be the one
Now,
to comment
Kurt
to
and
both.
Bob, is that the one that you just gave us?
What, I think the wrong one was sent, John. Ed has a copy, and he's gonna read off the one that we were supposed to have. But this is an internal one they marked up, but I said we like it, so.
Is there a chance we can make copies of that so this commission can see?
Yeah, we have.
No. that's-
The information that you'll hear Ed Murphy present are the additional waivers that we've talked about, and you're aware of what's being requested, and we'll go into that. One was lighting.
Yeah, and they were fleshed out after, as part of the Gilmore review of the plans that are in front of you, that sort of go hand in hand with the July 11th review letter, so.
They should correlate as we go through it.
Yeah.
It'll make sense, but we'll make a copy of the letter so everyone has it.
Through the
Okay.
chair, can I just make a comment?
Yes, you can, Kathy.
So I just wanted to compliment you on your response letter
Big fan.
with the notations marked on the side about local
Isn't that easier? Yeah.
You weren't supposed to get that, that's the irony.
Well, yes, we love it. It's awesome.
Oh,
It's very clear and concise.
Oh, so we weren't supposed to get that, so we weren't supposed to see the pushback?
Push back, that was really internal. But I hope it didn't look too aggressive with the
No,
full exclamation point.
It didn't work, by the way. We have to do what Kurt and Samantha say anyway, so.
Yeah, nice try with the pushback.
Okay,
It's
so
really
Ed,
an easy read. It was good.
There we go.
that's good. Thanks, Bob.
And I would say as a preface, before we go through each of them, there's only a couple that are new. I mean, most of these are, as you indicated, that have been since November. So there's only a couple that have been added, so we'll take them one at a
Well, we
time.
were just wondering if this was a test, because when you started off with 173 and none of us had 173, we were paying attention.
Good. Okay, well, I'm still going to start with 173,
Okay.
16B. And I'm going to turn it over to Kurt, because what this one is, as a layperson, it deals with how much freeboard capacity is available for basin number 3. So, Kurt, you want to, I'm pretty sure Kurt's staff has agreed with it, but if you would just comment, if you would.
Yeah, it just had to do with the configuration of the site and the grading, and they weren't able to necessarily meet the letter of the law as far as the freeboard on the spillway. But our folks have reviewed it and find that it'll perform as needed to fully meet the stormwater management requirements.
Okay, well, Kurt, I appreciate that, and not to throw any ointment into this whole thing, but if you don't mind, can we pull a picture up that goes about what you're talking about? And if we could point to what we're talking about, because we do have a viewing audience
Sure.
that has no clue.
Okay. And I'll ask Mike if he wants to do that once the plan's available, and you can do that.
Sure, so that's the first slide.
And do you have a pointer by any chance?
Excuse me?
A pointer?
I don't, no.
I do.
Oh, look at that.
Thank you.
So we're talking about this corner of the site back here, basin number 3. This is not a grading plan, but suffice it to say that because of the way the site grades, I lost my, sorry, I don't think it's working. But because of the way the site grades, we're unable to get the depth of the basin we need to provide that extra foot of cover that's required by the ordinance. However, we did speak with Samantha, had some exchanges with Samantha and Kurt, and the compromise was to provide an under drain with the valve so that if for whatever reason that basin doesn't infiltrate and empty the way that it's designed to, there's a fail-safe where turn the knob and it'll drain its way out to the street.
Thank you.
Yep.
And since the pointer isn't functioning, if you just want to go over the next one, just with a pen, highlight on the plan where it is. The next one is not engineering-based necessarily. It's 177-14E. We're asking for a preliminary as final a recommendation of approval. Typically, we wouldn't ask for the combination unless the level of detail on the plan was qualified it as a final plan. I think Gilmore is okay with that, but Kurt, if you want to confirm.
Yeah, we're okay with the combined preliminary final approval.
The third item, and Mike, you can highlight where on the plan we're talking about, would be, it's a waiver from 177-41F to permit parking to be closer than 15 feet to the building. If you would highlight where on the plan that condition exists.
That's one of the legacy waivers that was already brought to the attention of the township, so that's not a new one. So we have parking to service the front of house of the trucking facilities that's closer than 15 feet. Still plenty of room for overhang, ADA, accessibility, so no safety issues, anything like that.
The next one is from a waiver for 177-42B that talks about lighting in paved areas, the illumination strength, if you would just, whether it's worth pointing out or talking about the site generally.
Yeah, as you can see, to accommodate the truck movements for these trucks that are parking, a sea of asphalt is required, which really kind of limits where we can put light poles where they won't get whacked by trucks. So we spoke with, when we spoke with Gilmore's office, we're going to improve the situation. We think we can add some more lights around the perimeter, but realistically, I don't think we're going to be able to meet that strictly letter of the law, that 1.0 foot candle intensity across the site because of its expansiveness. In a retail parking center, you have landscaping islands and all that stuff, but a slightly different operation here, so we're asking for relief from strict compliance from that requirement.
Kurt, your office have a comment on that one?
Yeah, our landscape architects reviewed it, and they were okay with, as discussed, that would be the compromise, that they would do the best they can to meet it, but it should be a relatively small variation from what the required lighting provisions are.
The next one is a waiver from 177-43A to not require sidewalks to be installed along Clydeway Drive.
Relatively self-explanatory. There are none there anywhere else for them to connect to, so.
And I think we know Clydeway Drive is not a pedestrian-oriented thoroughfare. It's in the industrial park, and it's the last undeveloped section, and there aren't sidewalks anywhere else, so that was that. The next one is pretty standard, waiver from section 177-91C3 to talk about, your ordinance typically requires that all kinds of off-site details be provided within 200 feet of the project. Typically, you've probably seen this multiple times. The way we address it is usually provide Kurt's office with an aerial of the significant features in that area off-site. I think we've done that now, and typically, and I don't think in this case it's any different, Gilmore would support that waiver. Kurt?
Yeah, we're good with that.
Okay. 17791D9, Mike, the request is to eliminate showing individual tree locations. What's that about?
Correct. So there was no tree survey for individual trees. There was some scarce woods that grew across for which we were granted a waiver to clear the site. So getting an individual tree survey didn't seem pertinent for the kind of project that we're putting forward.
And the last one is just the same substance, but a different section in the ordinance, but it's the same thing. So it's 17791D9 was preliminary, 17792D9 was final. So they're the same. Same thing as I probably should have mentioned is the showing detail within 200 feet of the limit of the site. There was a section 91C3 for preliminary, 92C3 for final.
And just for clarification, Mr. Lardy just stated it was a waiver that was requested. It was actually a variance from the zoning hearing board for woodland disturbance that was granted.
Back in September, right.
Correct.
Yep.
Thank you.
And those are the extent of the waivers.
Thank you, Ed. Questions from the commission?
Through the chair, just one question.
Yes, Kathy?
And again, I'm gonna compliment you, that letter was fabulous. Even though
I'm
we weren't
embarrassed.
supposed to say
It's
it.
embarrassing.
It helped, it was so good.
Who knew?
But, just, confirming that the December 13th Pinoni letter, if that's a will comply, I take it.
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Correct.
No pushback whatsoever.
got it.
Thank you. Anyone else from the commission? Kurt, do you have anything?
I have no additional comments at this time.
Bob?
No comments at this time, John.
Do I have any questions or comments from the audience? Hearing none, Commission, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to recommend to council the land development of Ideal Trans LLC, 1498 Clyde Waite Drive, Bristol, requesting preliminary and final land development approval in order to construct a trucking terminal, on the property located on Clyde Waite Drive, lots numbers 5 and 6, tax parcels number 5-61-421-005 and 006, in an M1 lighting manufacturing zone district of Bristol Township, along with the 9 waivers requested in the Land Corps letter from January 18th, 2022, also in compliance with the Pinoni letter dated December 13th, 2021.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
It's been moved and second. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Good
Good.
luck, gentlemen.
Thank you, guys.
Good luck.
The next item on our agenda is consideration of proposed ordinance amending the code of the Township of Bristol, amending sections 205-120.A.50, 205-120.A.52, and 205-120.A.66 concerning the parking requirements for manufacturing, wholesale business, wholesale storage, warehousing, and medical marijuana grower/processor uses. So I'm reading the ordinance. It's an ordinance amending the code of the Township of Bristol, amending sections 205.A.50, 205-120.A.52, and 205-120.A.66 concerning the parking requirements for manufacturing, wholesale business, wholesale storage, warehousing, and medical marijuana grower/processor uses. Whereas the Council of the Township of Bristol is empowered to adopt ordinances of the township pursuant to the Pennsylvania First Class Township Code 53P.S.56502, and whereas the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code authorizes the Township of Bristol to amend its zoning ordinance and zoning map 53P.S.10609, and whereas the nature of industrial land uses has changed with regards to technology and to the employment and staffing requirements for such uses, and whereas the Council of the Township of Bristol believes an amendment to the zoning ordinance, specifically sections 205-120.A.50, 205-120.A.52, and 205-120.A.66 concerning parking requirements for manufacturing, wholesale business, wholesale storage, warehousing, and medical marijuana grower/processor uses is necessary to protect the health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the residents of the township and is in accordance with the township's comprehensive plan for future development. Now, therefore, the Council of Bristol Township, Bucks County, Pennsylvania, does hereby ordain and enact the following. Section 205-120.A.50 is amended to read as follows. Use F1 manufacturing, 1 off-street parking space per 2,000 square feet of gross floor area. Section 205-120.A.52 is amended to read as follows. Use F3, wholesale business, wholesale storage, warehousing, 1 off-street parking space per 2,000 square feet of gross floor area. Section 205-120.A.66 is amended to read as follows. Use F13, medical marijuana grower/processor, 1 off-street parking space per 2,000 square feet of gross floor area. Whenever the requirements of this ordinance are in conflict with other requirements of the ordinances of the Township of Bristol, the most restrictive or those imposing higher standards shall govern. The provisions of this ordinance are severable. If any section, clause, sentence, part, or provision hereof shall be held illegal, invalid, or unconstitutional by any court of competent jurisdiction, such decision of the court shall not affect or impair any of the remaining sections, clauses, sentences, parts, or provisions of this ordinance. It is hereby declared to be the intent of the Council of Bristol Township that this ordinance would have been adopted if such illegal, invalid, or unconstitutional section, clause, sentence, part, or provision had not been included herein. This ordinance shall become effective immediately. Attest Jill Meyer, Secretary, and in Council of the Township, Bristol Township, Bucks County, Craig Bowman, Council President. I've read the ordinance. I would entertain any comments or questions from the audience. Thank you. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Andrew Stoll on behalf of a concerned resident. I represent Mr. Beagle, the owner of property located.
I'm sorry, it was Andrew?
Andrew Stoll, S-T-O-L-L. And I represent an owner of property in Bristol Township, specifically at 6401 Airport Road. I just want to come here as a concerned resident, or on behalf of a concerned resident, and just discuss our concerns with respect to one aspect of this ordinance, or the proposed ordinance. And that's section 2 of the proposed ordinance, which proposes to amend section 205-120A52, more succinctly, the use related to wholesale business, wholesale storage, and warehousing. Now, there is a project that I'm sure everyone's familiar with that's coming through Bristol Township now, which affects my client. It's the Hammock Hotel at 6201 Bristol Pike. Now, with respect to
Okay,
that.
so, Andrew?
Yeah.
One thing we do know, we can't presume or assume anything. We have a viewing audience that may not have a clue of what you're talking about.
Sure. So that project proposes this F3 use, which is, and part of that use and part of the project proposed less than is required parking under it is. I usually speak very loudly, as my wife would tell you, but have that.
No, just for our audience at home.
Oh, understood. Okay. So that project proposes less than is required parking. And that's one of the biggest concerns with my client. If you're familiar with Airport Road, it's a very narrow road, right? So we had our traffic engineer look through that with respect to what was being proposed and said, well, this is insufficient, not just because you're proposing less parking than required, but where does overflow parking go when you have underdeveloped parking? It goes on the surrounding streets, which is where my client is. So when we saw this ordinance coming through, the timing was interesting, is to put it bluntly. So to then require, the ordinance in effect right now has two parts of it, and I have a copy of it, and I can just kind of sum it up as best I can. The first aspect, it has to do with the largest shift of employees. The second aspect has to do with one parking space per 500 square feet of gross floor area. And the ordinance in effect as it stands right now actually says this is to ensure a sufficient amount of parking can be provided if the use or tenancy changes. In layman's terms, that means if we go and we develop a project and we have underdeveloped parking, and then I go change it, sell it to somebody else or lease it to somebody else, and there's underdeveloped parking, the parking flows on the street, who does that affect? The surrounding property owners. So then we're looking at the ordinance that's now being proposed, which is not 500 or one space per 500, but now it's one space per 2,000. So it's a quarter, or it's 75% times what's there now. So we had short notice of coming here tonight. We wanted to voice our concerns. We had our traffic engineer look into this, and he agrees with everything that we're saying. He can issue a report to that effect. So with that said, I would just like that, again, I'm not here to throw a wrench into this whole ordinance. I'm just asking that you consider that with respect to that use in section 2 of the proposed ordinance. So.
I'm sorry, I'm guilty too with not speaking into the mic and turning it green. I want to thank you again for your presentation and concerns and questions. And some of what you're saying certainly has some logic to it, I believe. I will say this, this commission, when we have these ordinances that are presented to us, we actually do what I just did, read it so everybody's familiar with the ordinance. And I'm guessing there may be, if this was an issue that interested parties thought that maybe this really, as you said, it's interesting that things are happening the way they are. We don't know, but I believe there is some sort of, I'm sure there must be some sort of an appeal process that people can go through to address whatever they think wasn't absolutely correct. And I would certainly recommend yourself and the people you represent to actually go to that route if they have a strong objection to language in this ordinance. As a planning commission, although we do not get involved in all the whatever's going behind and what's all that, we look at what comes in front of us. I've read the ordinance. If anybody else has any questions or comments, we would certainly entertain them. So thank you very much for your presentation.
Yes, and thank you very much for everyone's time. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Any other comments, questions? Okay. Commission, we have this ordinance that has been presented, and I would entertain a motion on the approval of the ordinance.
I'll make
Okay.
a motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and second. Any comments or questions on this motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you, Commission. Having nothing else on our agenda, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second? Moved and second. Comments or questions? None. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Meeting is adjourned.